When news broke this week that there are now cases of children diagnosed with monkeypox, it came without clarification that this disease is not simply an STI. And as a result, the right wing has exploited this story to further their inaccurate narrative about the LGBTQ community and how they're all groomers preying on children. Now, it's disgusting. It reminds me of what happened during the AIDS epidemic in this country. And really what we're experiencing with right-wing extremism within our own borders today is a repeat of some of the worst moments in American history, like reproductive rights being stripped away, this focus on whether sodomy should be banned in certain states, like just insane, whether we should outlaw gay marriage. And now we have the same homophobic narratives that we dealt with in the 80s with the AIDS epidemic. Now, in the context of monkeypox, men who have sex with other men have been identified as a higher risk group and have therefore been prioritized in the rollout of this monkeypox vaccine. But that does not make monkeypox a gay disease, just like HIV and AIDS is not a gay disease. Straight people can get it as well. Now, according to the CDC, the monkeypox virus spreads through close person-to-person contact. This can include through both skin touch and respiratory secretions during kissing, hugging, and sex. But there are other ways that it can be transmitted, non-sexual ways, such as touching items that have been exposed to the infectious rash or bodily fluids. Now, if you're wondering what monkeypox leads to, what kind of symptoms you can expect, symptoms include things like fever, headache, muscle aches and backache, swollen lymph nodes, chills, exhaustion, respiratory symptoms like sore throat, nasal congestion, a cough. It's very rare for an individual to die from monkeypox. 99% of people who contract it do survive. So that's an important element to the story as well. And no one should be hysterical about this, but it doesn't matter. The right wing has seized on this opportunity to say terrible, terrible things about the gay community. For instance, far-right activist Laura Loomer, who's running for US Congress again out of Florida, asked on Telegram, who's raping kids in DC after news broke that an infant there had contracted monkeypox. There are other right-wing activists on Instagram, like this Lauren person who says, gays are raping babies and monkeypox is spreading rapidly throughout their communities because they can't stop themselves, nor can they stop raping babies. We're about to see a lot more child cases, and that should concern everyone. You know, the idea that the right wing in America is concerned about rape is laughable to me, especially when they just went through this process of trying to deny that a 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio had to travel out of her state to get an abortion because she didn't want to have a rapist baby as a 10-year-old. They tried to deny that story even existed. They tried to erase her because she was inconvenient for their draconian, stripping of reproductive rights for women. People get raped every day in this country. They get raped in our military. Republicans don't want to do anything about that. They get raped in our prisons. That is the biggest open secret ever. They don't want to do a damn thing about that. They can't get enough of the rape that takes place. They refuse to do anything about rape, but they will pretend to care about rape victims when they're trying to demonize members of the LGBTQ community, regardless of how inaccurate their narrative is.
Well, it's deeply disturbing. And I mean, this resurgence of this kind of rhetoric is not by accident. This is a way to galvanize the right wing and to get them involved on a grassroots level. It's all connected. When we saw that anti-CRT push recently, that was a way to activate Republicans on a grassroots level electorally, because if you're going to your school board meeting to complain about CRT, you're also going to vote in the polls and in the election. They understand that. And it's the same thing with these Don't Say Gay bills, which are a way to target LGBTQ teachers. And the bigotry that balloons from that, they see that as an advantage because it means it's more fertile ground for them to have more electoral success. if more hatred is spewing out of their mouths and more people are invested in it. And so, I mean, I also just want to point out that this disgusting narrative about gay people and trans people, that right-wing influencers, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is a part of this as well, claiming that the kids are being targeted or assaulted. Yeah.
I mean, can I just read her tweet real quick since you referenced it? She's like, if monkeypox is a sexually transmitted disease, why are kids getting it? Maybe it's not a sexually transmitted disease, you moron. But anyway.
She's such a damn idiot, right? But she's also just so hateful. And she, it was not her actually, but Candace Owens and Paul Gosar, who's another far right congressman who was involved in January 6th, they were spreading this conspiracy theory about the Uvalde shooter being trans. And when they talk about mental health, and they're always saying we have to address mental health, and then they're spreading conspiracy theories about the Uvalde shooter being trans and the shooter in Illinois who wore women's clothes to escape. And right-wing influencers are like, well, probably trans, probably mentally ill because there's something wrong with them. They're doing the same thing with gay people. They want to stigmatize people to such a degree that they have electoral success, and they don't want to see them in their lives. So, they either want you to go back into the closet or they want you to die. And that is the direct result of this kind of stigmatization that we're seeing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's just amazing how everything old is new again, right? All of the terrible social stigmas and social issues that this country finally overcame are now coming back to the spotlight. And we're seeing the reversal of some of the gains that were made. And I really do think part of the problem is that broadly speaking left, I'm not talking about just leftists, I'm talking about broadly speaking Democrats, libs, whatever you want to say, they just kind of took those gains for granted and thought, no, we're good now, we're good now. But you have to continue to fight for those rights. You have to continue to fight to maintain those rights. And you have to do it as aggressively and viciously as corporations do to protect all of the goodies they get and all of the handouts they get.
I think that there's this commitment to the progress myth among the Democratic Party, where they perceive progress as this fluid and almost natural, not unnatural, but a natural way of the world, that it's always going, progress is inevitable and it's like a tide. It's just gonna keep going and it's the way of the world. And frankly, what that does is it erases the blood and the sweat of the activists and the people fighting on the ground for these rights that caused it to be, these rights to be enshrined into law or them to be acceptable. It's not something that happens naturally. It happens on the backs of people fighting for it. And I think Democrats in power are very quick to erase that struggle because it doesn't really involve them. And also it's an easier myth to believe that that's how things are just gonna magically work themselves out than to understand that it's really hard work.
Yeah, it is hard work, and the fight has to continue. It's not necessarily just about fighting for more rights, although we need to do that as well, right? But to maintain the rights that we fought for and manage to succeed in getting, because there's always going to be the opposing side wanting to chip away at those freedoms, especially, by the way, when we're dealing with this pro-corporate era, where you've got the legalized bribes, you have members of Congress investing in individual stocks, meaning that there's a huge conflict of interest there, right? So they're not going to pass legislation reining in corporate greed when they know that that's gonna harm their own stock portfolio. And so in lieu of real governing, all of the focus is on culture war narratives, because what else are they gonna campaign on? And so of course Republicans are gonna focus on that. Yes, there's the fact that many of these lawmakers are homophobic and racist themselves, but outside of that, in addition to that, they also need something to run on. And they're not gonna run on economic populism. Their donors don't want that, they don't want that. And so they're gonna go from one disenfranchised group, one powerless group to the next, making them the boogeymen, making them the scapegoats for all of the terrible things that Americans are going through in this country, whether it be economic anxiety and what have you. And this is what we deal with. This is what we see.
To back up Anna's point, I mean, I also think that Republican power players,
that they end up getting what they want.
Yes, and Republican power players understand that the rules don't necessarily apply to them. So if they have a gay son, they're gonna be okay. They're gonna be okay. A Republican politician who just voted against marriage equality just officiated his son's wedding to another man. They'll understand the rules don't apply to them, but they will, even if they don't hate people, they'll ride it to electoral success because that's how craven they are.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.